What's going on, everybody? CJ here. Today I wanted to talk about Tarisland and my thoughts, first impressions, and first 2 weeks of this game coming out and what I think of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, guys, so let's talk about Tarisland. It kind of snuck up on me, maybe some of you guys too, especially if you're WoW vets and you're sort of waiting for the new expansion to come out. So when I started looking for stuff to play, there really wasn't a lot on the market, especially in the MMO space. Most of them come out very bland, bleak, not much to do, and sort of fizzle away relatively quickly. Tarisland, I knew nothing about. The game came out of nowhere. I was watching some streamers, and to my surprise, it's actually been a pretty fun game. So the game came out officially on June 21st, global release. It has been in betas. It has been in China for a little bit longer than that. So there's been some people who have had a chance to play the game and understand it a little bit. But I finally had my first take on it, and I want to kind of share my thoughts. I've been really enjoying it. It has given me the thought and idea of creating content again around this game. So I'm excited about that. I've made some content on this channel in the past, but nothing really has been out that I wanted to jump into that isn't already pretty saturated. So I decided that, the game kind of really inspired me to get back into making content. So for starters, this MMO, it's a PC game, also mobile game. So we'll talk about that a little bit. There are 9 playable classes. It's your traditional bard, warrior, paladin, rogue, mage, bard in the game, which is pretty cool. So there are some interesting classes. All classes share talent trees. So some of them are DPS only, like your mage is a frost mage and a fire mage, but a bard, as you can see here, is a damage dealer and a healer. So that's pretty cool. And you got paladin, warrior, which are going to share the tank responsibility. So it is your traditional 1 tank, 1 heal, 3 DPS comp for most 5-man content. And then for content, gonna be your 2 tank, 2 healer, 6 DPS comp. Doesn't need to be that, but that is gonna be, generally speaking, design that the game is built around, right? They're gonna 2-2-6. So I started playing the game on release. I had a great time with the game. I initially made a rogue. I really enjoy rogue. I like the playstyle, I like the burst. I made a rogue as my main character. Early on, the game was time gated. So the first week we got a little sneak peeks around level 20. I think then it was like 30, 34, so on and so forth before we could get to the current cap of level 40. So along the way, you kind of hit level peaks and felt like you had a lot of free time to go ahead and dive into more content. So that gave me the interest of trying other classes to see if something else really kind of me. Generally, in a lot of games, I play mage, so I made a mage, enjoyed that class quite a bit. I just never really took it to 40. Made a bard because when I created a character in this game, I initially decided or thought that, hey, usually in these types of games, the struggle boss is going to be a healer and a tank. So I was like, why don't I make a class? I like bard, I like its concept. Doesn't exist in a lot of MMOs, but I do truly enjoy the whole kind of music throwing around, kind of buffing your team. So I was like, let me make a bard as a healer class. So I did make a bard, but as the game progressed, it started to become the scenario where isn't that free, in the sense of, unless you're committing a lot of time to the game, you really don't have enough time to have a ton of alts. So I do want to make that clear. Do hit the level cap. If you really want to progress your character, it does get a little more difficult to have alts, specifically or more particularly in Arena, because of the time gating. So we'll talk about some pros and cons in this game, but let's get and dive into the game. So when you launch the game, you're going to hop in. Of course, you're going to end into the wherever you really saved or wherever you last logged. But right now I'm in Silverlit, which is the primary city of the game. So it has all your generic mechanics that you would expect an MMO to have. You got your map, you go to your world map. We can go more of a deep dive. This is going to be a very high level video just to kind of give my first impression. So you got your couple of areas, you got your rep grinds, you got your standard MMO stuff, right? You got your very casual work, then you get into more of your hardcore work. So you're going to have your Misty Forest, your Silverlit Outskirts, and Ancash Cannon. So those 3 are going to be your current season, more to come areas to go after. So you go in, you get all these different kind of things of interest to do, whether it be reputation grinds, points of interest, treasure chests, open world stuff. They've got fishing in this game, a whole slew of things. Honestly, for a released game where most games that come out released are very bland, there's actually quite a bit to do. I am worried in the long term how much there will be to do, because I feel like we're going to run into a position where there's a lot to do now because there's a lot of content. But then I do think that we're going to run into a position where the content's going to run a little dry. We're going to have like kind of log in, not much to do, log out scenario. So we'll have to definitely see what happens. But your traditional MMO style of game, you got your rep grinds, etc. You got your Dark Invasions, which is just going to be like a every 3-day rotation of world quests, just generic world quests like you probably experience in like a World of Warcraft, where you go out, you do your 3 or 4 big quests to get you a big turn-in, right? It gives you like a decent amount of rewards. You get your world boss, same thing. It's like 3 rotation, about twice a week you can get your world boss loot, and you got this amusement park system, which is very similar to like a Dark Moon Fair if you played WoW. So some base systems, which is great. Do have some cool little features in the game. So for getting into this, customization is available immediately in the game, built into the client, which is awesome. So you can really customize it exactly how you want it to look. So mine's kind of similar to my World of Warcraft design. You have a built-in damage meter, so I think that's kind of interesting. A lot of games you have to have like third-party add-ons, so I appreciate that they kind of decided to throw that into the game immediately. For content, so you do have gameplay. So your universal halls are going to be single-player sort of one-on-one battles, and you're going to take them on in order to achieve looking for what's called Inscribd stone dust, and that dust is going to be a part of your development tree, so we'll talk about that in a second. But in the gameplay, I will give them credit. The dungeons and raids are relatively fun, pretty good, especially for a mobile game. They have a normal mode, elite mode, and they have a challenge mode. Normal is, as you'd expect, relatively easy to clear. Elite gets a little more difficult. Without a decent group of players, it could be struggling, especially if you're undergeared. Challenge mode, you actually do need to be kind of in there. I think they do a nice job too of really explaining what core mechanism is of the dungeon, the boss skills, and specifically what your role is supposed to do. Do a nice job of really showcasing it here. As you can see, the game has really nice built-in systems. So I do appreciate the efforts that they put there, especially for maybe newer players who have never played MMOs or coming from a phone. And there's definitely some nice features added into the game to help with those things. So then dungeons, you can go into raids, same concept, really nicely done. They have the guides, they have the strategies, they have the tips that really can show pretty much everything that's going on in these specific fights. So it does help for a new player to come in and kind of what they are going to need to do. So again, nicely done on the dungeons and raids. They do have pretty nice mechanics. I do appreciate the efforts they put into it in the sense that it doesn't feel like a tank spank that you just sit there, taunt heal, or just single target heal, DPS just blast by, and then the bosses die with nothing really to think about. There are a lot of phases where healers do have to do some big AoE healing. They have to use their burst cooldowns or the raid will wipe. Tanks do have to do a lot of off-tanking. They have to do a lot of swaps. So I think they did a nice job with the design in that regard. So it's fine. It's not just boring, spam, nothing. From a skill rotation, it's not nothing, but there's not a lot. So if you're looking at like my rogue rotation, you know, speaking from like target burst damage on my dual spec, which is kind of like sub rogue in WoW, it really is going to be your invis, going to open on the target with probably your 2, which is an E for me, into probably the heal reduction, into like your burst, right? So your 4, 6 are going to be your big burst buttons. E is going to be my 5, which is generally most classes going to be your AoE, and you're kind of realistically spam your 1, 2, 3s here. So rotationally speaking, it's not a difficult concept, more to be had for sure. So to PvP, this is what I was most excited for. Well, finishing off PvE, right? Arcane Realm essentially is WoW's Mythic Plus. It's the dungeons rinsed and repeated with additional affixes, and with each floor getting progressively harder, right? So as you go from floor 1, kind of initial M0, if you want to call it that, your floor 2 is going to have more attack power, more enemy HP. Floor 3, a little bit more difficult. This is how you're going to get more and more gear. And as you progress through it, as you can see, each floor has different pieces. When you clear a floor 3, for example, you will get floors 1, 2, 3 loot available to pick which floor you want to roll, because it is an RNG. You don't get to pick the ring, the pants, or the helm. It's going to be an RNG drop of the 3. However, you do get a currency called ancient metals. These ancient metals are going to allow you to go into the store, and within the store you are able to go ahead and buy pieces with those ancient metals to buy pieces that maybe you just kind of lucky and got 2 or 3 boots in a row and you really needed that helmet, right? So nice system to allow you to kind of progressing your character and not feeling like it's never your RNG is not going your way. So they did a nice job with kind of, right, like the PvE side. You got your raids, you got your dungeons, you got your Mythic Plus, you got your world bosses, you got your casual gameplay, you got your achievement hunting, you got your challenge mode for mount and skin farming. A lot of cool things. Progression, again, the way that they kind of grinding is going to be you got these attributes, right? So you can see for my class, crit is king, then you got omni and cooldown depending on the direction you want to go. It's hard to really go after both, but they're equal to, it just depends on the build you're going for all these spam invites is because it's about to be arena time. We'll talk about that here in a sec. And then you got your dex focus stam that are kind of like your 2 tier 3 kind of looking for. So like for example here, this is a crit cooldown, pretty good roll stats with a special aptitude, which is just going to be an abilities something. It can be any of your abilities. It could be my furious attack, which is my R3. It could be my spectral slash got more damage. It could be assault, which is your basic attack. Any of these could roll. So you can see assault here got more damage. This one didn't roll anything. So like I want to get a better piece. Not only is a 90 gear score, it rolled nothing, but like you're chasing those. You're chasing set pieces. So set pieces is going to be a grind aspect of the game. You're also chasing, again, this is like a set piece. This has a special aptitude, but it's got dex focus. So it's like a terrible roll. But the nice thing is say this piece is pretty godly, right? Like it got everything besides the actual attributes. Well, luckily they don't make it like, oh, and it's just a piece of shit that I'm gonna have to find something else. Actually, no, they did a nice job in the workshop. Again, more and more systems built into the game on launch. You have this inlay system, which is gems, kind of irrelevant to the point here, but tempering, this is where it gets kind of interesting. So we looked at, piece that I said had really good stuff. However, it just didn't really roll. That's up here. Well, if I got another piece of gear and it had like omni, then I could actually take this piece's crit omni, temper it into here to replace the dex focus while keeping the aptitude. So there is some pretty nice features in regards to that. Also, all the gear that you do ever buy in this game, so for empowering, for inlaying, etc., all that carries over to your next piece. Nothing is ever added to a piece of gear that then gets kind of wasted, thrown away and lost gold. So that's pretty nice. There is an auction house system, so a vigor system. So from a crafting perspective, you can't own the economy. You can't just spam farm for 20 hours in the game because you are limited to how much you can physically do. There's vigor potions, but you can only buy so many. So again, it's not an infinite that somebody can just kind of do anything. Because again, this is mobile, so people think pay to win. Just to get that kind of elephant out of the room, I don't think this game actually, surprisingly, is pay to win. I thought it would be because generally speaking, a free to play game, especially coming from, Western side, generally is loaded with some kind of pay to win. But surprisingly enough, this game doesn't have a lot of pay to win. Everything is a gacha system for skins, which is totally fine because from a skins perspective, I don't really care. I'm not going to spend money on the skins. I wanted to get this really cool looking skin right here. You just have to spend thousands of dollars. Like that's what it comes down to. But if you don't care about those types of things, you're not gaining a power from this. You literally are not winning or losing out on anything here because of that reason. So that's pretty nice that the most part of this game from an expense standpoint is going to be strictly coming from buying skins and mounts and other random stuff. So that's pretty nice that you're not really kind of, it's expensive, 45 bucks for a skin, 3 pieces being kind of transmogged. But I'll take that any day of the week over pay to win, right? For power. Because the only power you can gain as a whale is going to be gems. You can buy like gems than I could buy because I don't have enough gold on my account to purchase the high-end gems right now, but eventually we'll get there. And it's really only a PvE factor because in arenas, fair play, like it belies everything. So nothing really matters in arena besides actually gil, which is great. But the problem for arenas in this game right now is unfortunately, if you want to do arenas, you are limited to a 12:30 to 2 o'clock window and a 8:30, which is right now as I'm recording this video, to 11 o'clock window. I unfortunately can't play these hours most of the time. So I am Challenger, which is great. That's the highest rank you can get. There's Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Challenger. You can get to Challenger 5 and then work your way up into Challenger 5, numbered to just kind of continuously gain ranks. However, the MMR system doesn't really exist in this game. So I'm Challenger. I will play anybody in the game, though, that's queuing. I could play against Brownie Brown and Thek, who are the top 1-2 players in the game. I could also play against a bronze player. Doesn't mean a bronze player is bad, just maybe they didn't play enough games yet. Really, unfortunately, the rank system in this game isn't really skill. There's some skill, of course, like you're not winning, you're not ranking up. But if you're like at 50% and you're just playing every time you can, like you will just be Challenger at some point. At least I think that if you played all week, you'd probably get there. I played, so they reset on Fridays. I played Friday noon window, so an hour and a half. Played Sunday night, played last night. 3 sessions. I'm Challenger 1. So it means I missed Friday night, all Saturday, Sunday morning, Monday morning, today. So I missed 5 or 6 sessions of PvP and I'm Challenger 1. Imagine if I played all those games with a 71% win rate. I would be Challenger 5 in the top probably like 30. You know, just don't have the time to play. So I really hate the lockout because of that reason. If it didn't have the lockout, I think there would be more opportunity for me to gain more ranks, but that's what it is. You know, Arena is really fun. It's a WoW light. It really plays exactly the same way. With the Arena, you're trying to set up CC, you're trying to go burst, you're trying to get the kill, etc., etc. BGs are also in this game, Battlegrounds, so that's really fun. Battleground mode. There's a rotation every day of different maps. There's 3 maps. I'm fun. I love Battlegrounds. The problem is when the game came out, everyone was pretty equalized because everyone was a private or corporal level. Now that people are starting to gain the hero requirement to progress into this system over here, which is like your rank in the battleground system, you are gaining significant power. And unfortunately, the power you're gaining is making it so when you go into these, you know, like 5 power and 38,000 more health than like a private, so you're going into the battleground and you are just like a raid boss to the guys. So if you're playing like a bunch of randoms that are leveling, just got to 40, I'm shotting these guys. Like it's coming just realistically, like in weeks when we can go much further along and you have people who are trying the game for the first time, it's got to be a miserable experience in a battleground. So it's fun in the beginning. Now it's becoming like, it's like you gotta run 2 for your daily. Otherwise it's just kind of a shit show. So PvP is fun. There are some issues, I will say that, from the MMR side, from the time gating side, from the battleground kind of unequal balance. But man, there's just a lot to do in this game. I love that it like mobile option. I haven't played on mobile besides like into maybe like a couple of crafting things, you know, like grabbing stuff because maybe I forgot to do it during the day. I can't even imagine trying to raid or dungeon or PvP on my phone, but the fact that it is an option is pretty neat. But overall, I've been pleasantly surprised on how well this game has been. I don't know how long it'll last. I've already kind of noticed looking at the calendar that we are starting to kind of hit like phase tailing off, where last week like every new something came out. This week every like phase we're getting like an Arcane Realm floor, we're getting new raid bosses, and then you look at next week and it's like, oh, we're getting like wasps, and then like, you know, the whole week. I mean, like the dailies like dark invasions and such, but otherwise it's just a complete week of nothing. So this is going to be sort of content we're going to see going forward after the first 2 weeks of the game's launch. It's going to start to kind of fizzle in the sense of the grind. So we'll see what happens, but it has everything. It really does. It feels good to play. The being mobile, I will say like the story is terrible. I didn't really pay attention to it, but from what I saw in glimpses, like you tell they didn't really carry over nice job with the voice acting. It seems like it was AI generated, honestly, and it doesn't line up at all with kind of the scenes and such. So if you're interested, if you're like a story driven person, it's not the game for you in that regard. Very fast, probably like 6 hours you can hit level 40. Gearing up is relatively quick to catch up to. PvP side is going to be difficult, I think, to catch up. But all in all, I've had a really good time playing the game. And I'm doing pretty well in the rogue class. So if you guys are interested, I'd be happy to make more guide videos on more specifics around my skill setup, my talent tree, my rotation, PvE and PvP. I play cunning in PvE. I play duel in PvP. The Inscribd stone is kind of a cool feature. It's like a talent tree of skills to give you some more baseline stats across, you know, your stats like Omni cooldown crit. Then you got some emblems you can kind of into here to give it some additional stuff. So like Crush's crit rate is increased by 2.6% every 1 second after ending battle. So like things that kind of max your character a little bit. And all this is earned by getting this stone dust, which is dust is a grind. A lot of different content in the game give it to you, but realistically it's kind of logging in every day and doing your dailies is how you get it. So that's kind of how they're going to keep you coming back to keep getting more powerful. So at least there is a reason to log in and do the content, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, I wanted to make a video on sort of first impressions. I do want to go ahead and some more content for you guys. Just let me know in the comments below what you're interested in seeing. Again, I can do a lot of rogue specific guides. I can do tips and tricks guides. I can do crafting guides. I can do making guides. I feel like I've got a pretty good gist of this game. I've been playing it every day for the last week and a half since its release. I've done all the content so far that it has to offer. I've done some of the challenge modes. I haven't done them all, but I'm just not a huge PvEer, so I haven't had the willpower to spend 3-4 hours trying to clear some very difficult content in exchange for a maybe skinner mount. Just depends on who I killed and what it was offering. So for me, it wasn't really going to be a break for me to do that content. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.